Assalamualaikum and hi everyone, I'm Miss Ain. Today we're going to learn about complex sentence. Learning to write a proper and correct complex sentence is very important. A complex sentence provides more information on your main point by joining one independent clause with at least one dependent clause. Complex sentences also allow writers to provide more detail and background information in speech or writing. Complex sentences also make writing more sophisticated, connect ideas logically, and create a smoother flow than only using short sentences. A complex sentence has two parts. One part can stand alone. That's called the dependent clause. The other part cannot stand alone. That's what we call as dependent clause. Dependent clauses in complex sentences are usually introduced by using subordinating conjunction or relative pronouns to provide context of how the dependent and independent clauses relate to one another. Without it, sentences can sound a bit short or choppy. For example, because it was raining, we stayed indoors. We stayed indoors is the independent clause, highlighted in maroon color. It makes sense on its own. Because it was raining, highlighted in blue, is the dependent clause. It needs the other part to make sense. So how to structure complex sentences? There are two common ways to put these sentences together. Okay, so the first one, dependent clause first, then a comma, then the independent clause. For example, because it was raining, we stayed indoors. The next one, we start with independent clause first, then dependent clause. No comma needed. For example, we stayed indoors because it was raining. Subordinating conjunctions are words that start dependent clauses. They tell us things like time when something happened. So the conjunction we use would be after, before, when. Why something happened? So the conjunction would be because, since, or to show contrast or opposite. So the conjunction would be although, though, or maybe condition. The common conjunction would be if, unless. So you can see the examples of sentences on the screen. Again, the maroon highlight refer to independent clause, while the blue highlight is dependent clause. The bolded words are the conjunctions. So these words connect ideas and make your sentences flow. Relative pronouns are words like who, whom, whose, which, and that. They add details about a noun in the sentence. For example, the teacher who taught me is from Penang. I bought a bag that was made in Terengganu. This is the boy whose father owns the restaurant. Look at the first example. The teacher is from Penang is the independent clause, while who taught me English is the dependent clause. Here's a quick tip for commas. If the dependent clause comes first, use a comma. For example, although it was late, we kept talking. If the independent clause comes first, no comma. For example, we kept talking although it was late. For extra information with relative clauses, use commas. For example, my sister who lives in Johor is a doctor. If the information is important to the meaning, no commas. For example, the student who won the award is from UiTM. You may also refer to these examples for better understanding. Alright, so let's test what you have learned. Your job is you need to find the independent and dependent clauses in these sentences. Here are the answers. Independent clause for the first sentence is I missed my class, while the dependent would be because the bus was late. Independent clause for the second sentence is the man is my neighbor, while the dependent clause is who sells chendol. Independent clause for the third sentence is we cancelled the picnic while the dependent one is since it was raining. Let's move on to exercise 2. Now, combine this into complex sentences using subordinating conjunctions or relative pronouns. The first one is the night market was closed. It rained heavily. Second one, tourists took many photos. They visited the Petronas Towers. The last one, I met a student. He comes from Sabah. The answer for the first question is the night market was closed because it rained heavily. Because is a subordinating conjunction that shows reason. The dependent clause, because it rained heavily, explains why the night market was closed. The answer for the second question is tourists took many photos when they visited the Petronas Towers. When is a subordinating conjunction that shows time. The dependent clause, when they visited the Petronas Towers, tells when the tourists took many photos. And the last one is, I met a student who comes from Sabah. Who is a relative pronoun that gives extra information about the student. The dependent clause, who comes from Sabah, describes which student was met. Complex sentences can make your writing richer and more connected. To use them effectively, vary your sentence opening. Choose subordinating conjunction that clearly show the relationship between ideas and balance them with simple sentences for clarity. Always ensure the link between clauses is easy to understand. Whether you are writing an academic essay or everyday writing, using complex sentences can improve clarity and maintain the reader's interest. Thank you and best of luck.